Before we dive in, if you enjoy what you hear, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a tale. Like, share, and invite others to join us in the shadows, because fear is always better when it's shared. This story was first posted at creepypasta.org by user KE Moore. Title: Pills Part 1. You take the pills to keep them away. That's what we were told when we were first brought down here, down through the sterile white halls with their flickering fluorescent lights, and our small, Spartan cells. Down into the nightmare. Why would we agree to this? I was tired of being homeless. I was tired of smelling like urine. I was tired of the looks that people gave me, like they knew I was there, but if they could just avoid eye contact, maybe I wouldn't talk to them, wouldn't show up later, in their dreams, tugging at their consciences. I was tired of sleeping on cold concrete every night. I was tired of being so fucking hungry all the time. The man in the suit had come with his pretty white teeth and his expensive sunglasses, asking for volunteers. Medical trials, he said. I know, a scary movie waiting to happen, right? But when he promised full meals and warm beds, how could we pass that up? Being homeless, your life is a scary movie. You sleep in the alleys normal people refuse to walk down, hurrying by in case whatever is lurking in there reaches out and grabs them. You wait until the gangbangers and the prostitutes and the pimps and the junkies all pack it in for the day before you dare shut your eyes, and even then you aren't sure you'll ever open them again. Now I lay me down to sleep, and all that bullshit. On any given day, you don't know what might get you. The knife of some strung-out hophead, a stray bullet from a drive-by, the cold, the hunger. So when Mr. Fancy Suit, he never did give us his name, came along with his bright smile and his promises of food and beds, I couldn't hop in the van fast enough. I didn't care if this was the beginning of a real-life horror flick. It couldn't be any worse than what I lived every day, right? There were 7 of us in the back of the white van. We were clearly picked off of the streets. You could smell the desperation in the thick air, piss and sweat. We sat, hunched, quiet, our eyes taking each other in as the bumps in the road jostled us, our heads bobbling with each jolt. It was like in the movies when you see a bunch of soldiers in the belly of some plane, getting ready to parachute into a hot zone. Everyone's just quiet, and waiting for whatever the hell is coming next, and hoping it doesn't end in a body bag. The van didn't have windows, and there was a solid divider between us and the cab, so we didn't know where we were being taken. If we thought we would find out once we got to our destination, we were wrong. After a couple of hours in the van, the back doors swung open to reveal a giant bay, like a hangar, constructed of corrugated metal. 1 part warehouse, 1 part garage, 1 part one don't know. It was filled with shelves stacked with boxes, big, silver, industrial piping with valve handwheels the size of a bus steering wheel, and half a dozen more white vans. The bay doors, like oversized garage doors, were already shut. There were no signs, no clue as to the identity of our hosts. Even the man with the bright smile and fancy suit was gone. Instead, we were greeted by a younger kid, like he was straight out of college, with sandy hair, thick glasses, and a clipboard. He barely looked up at us as he said, "Okay, if you'll follow me, we'll get you guys processed." The college kid, he also didn't introduce himself, shuttled us from place to place for the next few hours without saying much beyond giving us basic instructions. White hallways with waxed floors and fluorescent lights took us from one room to the next, where college boy would tell us what we were supposed to do and make a little tick on his clipboard. We were allowed showers, with hot water and real soap, name brands. I can't remember the last time I had a shower with the good stuff. When I stepped out of the shower, I found my old clothes had been taken away, replaced by a set of crisp white coveralls and white shoes with crepe soles. That was followed by a physical given by an old doctor with yellow teeth and a bad smell like fermenting cheese. Lunch. Haircuts. I was both excited and terrified. The shower felt amazing, and the lunch, though a simple sandwich and carrot sticks, was good, the best meal I had in a while. After living on the streets, this was luxury. And according to the smiling suit, I had a couple of months of this to look forward to. But why were we here? What were they going to do to us? By the time we had a contract and pen quietly shoved toward us, we still hadn't seen a single sign of who exactly was running the show. Even the contracts didn't name our hosts. A third man, this one older with salt and pepper hair, came along in a sharp, brown suit that may as well have had lawyer embroidered on it. He read the contract, taking care to refer to our hosts without actually identifying them. They were always the benefactor, or the company. He told us we were to be paid for our services, $200 a week, and they were responsible for our food and lodging for the duration of the test. My whole body clenched with apprehension when the lawyer explained that the company would cover all burial and funeral costs in the case of incidental death. I looked around at the rest of my new companions. Most didn't even seem to notice, though Alphonse, a tall, rail-thin black man with 3 missing teeth, gawked at the lawyer with wide yellowed eyes. My apprehension deepened when the lawyer explained that by participating in the experiments, we waived all rights to sue or seek compensation the company for any wrongdoing whatsoever. What in the hell was I getting myself into? Unnamed fear ran through me, but it met with the fresh haircut and the clean clothes and full stomach, and there was a struggle. I could feel myself lift out of my seat, say all bets were off, that I'll take the street over incidental death. Now, as I crouch behind this locked door, scribbling away what may be the last words of my life and counting my last few pills, I wish I had. But I didn't. The fear subsided. I was going to be given a real bed, and clean clothes and food. Besides, I told myself, that's probably just the boilerplate stuff that never really gets used. So, as the chorus of pens scratching on paper rose around me, I took up the cheap ballpoint, scribbled my name where the lawyer indicated, and slid the contract across the table. Like a magic trick, the lawyer disappeared and was replaced by college boy, whose eyes were now glued to the bottom of the clipboard. He guided us to an elevator with only 2 buttons and hit the down arrow. There was a lurch followed by that brief moment of weightlessness you feel going down in an elevator. As we sank, one of us finally spoke up. "So what's the deal? What are we gonna be doing? Where are we?" asked a short man with a deep tan and heavy lines etched into his face. Later, I would learn his name was Billy. College boy didn't look up from his clipboard when he replied. "All of your questions will be answered soon," he said. Then he looked up and added, "Well, some of them anyway." With that, our group reverted to silence, the only sound the steady droning hum of the elevator as we continued to descend. Goosebumps rose on my flesh as we dropped. It seemed to be getting darker as we neared our final destination. I knew this couldn't be the case, as the elevator was lit with the same fluorescent lights that illuminated the hallways above us, and they didn't even flicker. All the same, I could feel the darkness in my skin, like some extra sense could detect that we were being swallowed up by the earth, as the sun disappeared above us. Now, I'm not a claustrophobe. Never have been, and when you are homeless, you come to find small, enclosed spaces to be a blessing rather than a curse. But when those elevator doors finally opened, I exhaled and rushed out as fast as I could, the oppressive atmosphere of the elevator sliding off of my shoulders as I did. I stepped into a room full of black instruments and glowing blue monitors. Overhead, more fluorescent lights cast a silvery glow over everything, giving the room the feel of a bright, moonlit night. Waiting for us were 3 people in long white coats, each of them giving us broad, welcoming smiles. I was struck instantly with just how beautiful all of them were. A tall, lean man with perfectly sculpted dirty blonde hair, a short, petite woman with slick black hair and creamy green eyes, and an older silver-haired man who looked less like a scientist and more like an aging actor. He'd have looked just as natural in a tuxedo with some 20-something ingenue on his arm at the Oscars. It was this older man who spoke once all 8 of us were out of the elevator. "On behalf of my colleagues, I'd like to welcome you, and thank you for your contributions to our research and to science for the greater good," he said through his broad smile, his arms outstretched. "These are my colleagues, Dr. Vorhauer," he continued, motioning to the tall man, "and Dr. Brune. I am Dr. Bell." Dr. Brune stepped forward. She was gorgeous. The way her hair spilled over her shoulders, the cool, mesmerizing color of her eyes, even the way her lab coat pinched in at the waist, hinting at finely molded curves. Looking at her was like looking at a being from a world entirely different than the one I was used to, beautiful, flawless, and alien. While you are here, your primary goal is to take these pills. She said. You take the pills to keep them away. Her small hand held out several little white pills that looked like Tic Tacs. Ah, keep what away? I interrupted. Them. It was a word that shattered whatever spell her beauty cast upon me. It didn't matter that the word came from her bow-shaped lips, wrapped in her soft, musical voice. It's a little thick. There was something horrifying about it. Something that triggered something primal within me. She flashed me a smile, her eyes crinkling up at the corners. Unfortunately, we can't divulge that information at this time. All you are required to know is that if you take the pills when they are offered, you will keep them away. This answer did nothing to ease my fears, and after a quick look around at the rest of my companions, I could see the unease on their faces as well. Dr. Vorhauer cut in. I can see that you are concerned. All we can say is that at this time you are free to go, but upon doing so, you forfeit your right to the pay and accommodations this experiment will afford you, and we do expect to be reimbursed for the services already provided to you today. And very good accommodations they are, Dr. Bell chimed in cheerily. He looked like a grandparent watching a kid about to open their present on Christmas Day, like he couldn't wait to see how pleased we were all going to be. The fear was still simmering, thick and tangible in the recesses of my mind, but the idea that I would have to pay them back for the services was more urgent. How much would that be? The food would be cheap, but a physical. Did that mean they would charge us for the lawyer and the gas money too? I wasn't the only one trying to do that bit of impossible math in my head. Without a word, as a group, we must have signaled that we were defeated. Dr. Brune started speaking again. Starting tomorrow morning, you take the pills when they are offered, and that is it. We aren't asking you to perform any special tests. You aren't on any special schedules other than normal mealtimes. You are free to do what you like with the time you spend here. You will each be given your own room and restroom facilities. We also have a common room with several amenities, a gym if you'd like exercise, and a cafeteria where you will take all of your meals. Billy raised his hand. Excuse me, I mean doctor. Is there anywhere to smoke around here? I'm sorry, Dr. Brune said. Her face darkened before finally settling on a sympathetic look. We do ask that all participants refrain from smoking for the duration of the experimentation process. We do, however, have a number of cessation aids to help you, if you would like. Before you're shown to your quarters, are there any other questions? Dr. Bell asked. A wrinkled old woman named Carly raised her hand this time. How long will this last? Dr. Von Hauer addressed her. We are slated for 6 weeks, but that is dependent upon the amount of data we are able to collect. If we get what we need, this can be over in as little as 2 weeks. It may go longer. If the trial does need to be extended, you will of course be consulted, and new contracts will be drawn up, Dr. Bell added. With that, the introduction was over. We had no more questions. Really, we were a bunch of homeless people. It wasn't in our nature to ask questions. We'd been kicked around by life, and gotten on by instinct for so long that the idea of asking for things wasn't in our programming. Now, as I write this, I wonder if things might have been different if we did ask more questions, if we looked a little deeper into the price tag for this thing. Maybe there wouldn't have been so much death. Maybe it was already too late. In any case, the first few days were pretty good, with few hints at the nightmare that would follow. We got to know our new home. Our rooms were small, with only a bed, a desk, and a bathroom, but they were clean. More importantly, they were ours. The common room staved off boredom with TVs and video games and a decent miniature library. Even the gym was nice, with plenty of equipment, though it did strike me funny that there were no weights. We learned about each other, too, telling our stories over the meals served in the cafeteria. The meals themselves were surprisingly good. I could tell it was health nut food, all vegetables and fruits and stuff. In 3 days we weren't served a single bite of meat, prompting Frank, a chubby little man with gravel for a voice and a dust mop for hair, to groan, "How the hell are we supposed to live on this shit?" But mealtime was when all 7 of us were together. It's funny, if you've never been homeless, you probably think we're all bums, that we are leeches on society looking for a handout. Most people think if someone's homeless, it's probably their fault. Sometimes it is, but it's almost always more complicated than that. Like Billy, who'd worked 20 years at the old steel mill before it closed its doors forever. Alphonse was laid off. Carly's husband beat and raped her nearly every night of their 15-year-long marriage. Without a high school diploma, Carly had no way to support herself. She stayed, enduring the abuse until one night her husband came after her with a butcher knife. She had no money, no skills, and no family to take her in. Pedro was an illegal trying to work to bring his family over, and Frank, well, Frank really did just drink his way out of a good job and out onto the streets. Then there was Amy, pink-haired, covered in tattoos, and barely old enough to vote. Amy's stepfather molested her at the age of 12. By 14, she had run off with a boyfriend 10 years older than she was. He got her hooked on meth before he was shot to death in a drug deal. The point is, I guess, that we were all long-time tenants of hell. By comparison, the compound was like a dream. Maybe that's why we were picked, because we would be so grateful for what we were being given that we wouldn't be put off by the curious diet or the gym with no weights, or the blindingly white corridors. We were too drunk on food and shelter to wonder why we hardly saw the 3 doctors. When we did, they always gave us these strange, glassy, emotionless smiles. I think it was the 4th day when things started to get strange. We'd sat down to breakfast, oatmeal and fresh fruit, when it became apparent that someone was missing.